Hello everyone, this is Logan59XP here for the final episode of the Nin-Cast for Season 4 and by extension 2020 here on December 29th. I may upload this a bit later, I may upload this tomorrow, but we'll see. But I am recording this on December 29th, which means that the end of the year is approaching and I wanted to do one last video before calling it a year. And I figure, let's go ahead and do a little retrospective of this infamous year. I'm going to be focusing mainly on the gaming/tech stuff, because everything that's really been said about COVID and everything kind of has already been said. I don't really have to say anything. You've obviously probably already experienced the effects of it. We kind of all have, even if we've never gotten COVID or anything like that, you know. Obviously, we've all been affected because there's social distancing and the masks and things being delayed or canceled and all that stuff. But we'll get to how that affects gaming and stuff like that in a second. So let's go in order here. Again, I'm gonna skip over the Iran thing from earlier in the year that everyone's kind of like, yeah, remember the Iran thing from very early in the year? Yeah, everyone's already forgotten about that. And then of course COVID. Then there was and then of course there was the George Floyd and how that exploded into its own thing. Like, a lot of things have happened this year in general. But again, I'm gonna be focusing on the gaming/tech stuff because that's the stuff I want to talk about. That's the stuff, if you're watching this series, you probably care about. So let's go ahead and get into it. January, for the most part, nothing really happened in January, which isn't surprising because why would there be anything really in January? It's the very first month. Generally speaking, not much happens in the gaming/tech space outside of like CES, which did happen this year, I think, because CES happens in January, and that was before the pandemic was really a thing worldwide. So I think there was still CES this year, but other events did not happen. There's one. What was it? Was it not WWDC? That's the Apple event. The GDC, the Game Developers Conference, that didn't happen, I think, and also I think PAX didn't happen and stuff like that. But anyways, so January 2020. Basically, so this is coming off the heels of basically the Game Awards 2019, where we got the Series X reveal and the non-existent reveals of the next Smash character and Breath of the Wild 2 after it was revealed at E3 that year. So, from the perspective of Nintendo, this was basically January 2020. We were in that when's the next Direct phase. That's the thing that we've been doing for years, right? Like, it's like, when's the next Direct? When's the next Direct? When's the next Direct? I'm tired of waiting for new information. When's the next Direct? Oh, you poor souls. When's the next Direct? Oh, you poor souls. Well, we did get Directs this year, technically, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But yes, the first real announcement I want to talk about of the year that happened was, of course, the reveal of the 5th character in the Fighter's Pass, the 5th Challenger Pack, the next DLC character, and after not being at the Game Awards and tons of people, getting more and more antsy as time went on, and rumors started going about who it was, when it finally happened, I don't think it would be an underestimate to say that people were not really thrilled. Saying people were not thrilled is probably making it a bit too PG, but that's, yeah, I mean, even right now, even in like December, it's changed a lot since then, and people's opinion of the character has changed since then, but even now in December, almost January, if you look up the the upload after the fact, the Mr. Sakurai, I forget what the little catchphrase was for it, but the presentation, it still has like 90k dislikes, but like 189k likes. So there is that, I guess. But yeah, so I'm kind of skirting around the issue here. Yeah, so the character that was revealed after such a long wait, at least a long wait in comparison, because remember, the last character was Terry, and he was announced in September, didn't come out till November. And this was January. And remember, this is going off of the assumption that every character was every 2 months, because that's how it was in 2019. We got Piranha Plant in February, we got Joker in April, we got here a little bit later. We got him in like the end of July. Then we got Banjo in early September, and then we got Terry in November. So therefore, January, everyone was like, come on, new character, new character, new character. Especially because Bayonetta and Corrin came out in like early February. So it's kind of like, we should be getting at least an announcement around that time. And then yeah, the character we got was a character I personally didn't really have any problems with, even though I didn't expect them they would actually do it. But obviously a lot of people had problems with them, and let's just go ahead and say who it is, because you all know who it is. It's the one, the only, the black sheep of Smash Ultimate, and will probably still be the black sheep of Smash Ultimate, similar to how another similar-ish character was the black sheep of Smash 4. I'm, of course, talking about the... Oh, darn it. I don't remember the phrase, but whatever. Point is, Byleth. So, yeah. Byleth was basically the beginning of 2020 for Nintendo, and it was not exactly a strong start, to put it lightly, for a lot of people. Again, as I just said, I personally never had a problem with them. I don't have a problem with them now, and I never even had a problem with them back then. That being said, even though I personally didn't have a problem with them, they could not have picked a worse possible, timing. People are already annoyed that they didn't reveal a character at the Game Awards, although with hindsight, you could argue that maybe it's a good thing they didn't reveal at the Game Awards. I personally still think it should have been at the Game Awards, because the trailer was set up in a way that felt like it was supposed to be at the Game Awards, because you can't, because of course, the way they did the trailer, right, was, hey, the trailer just kind of starts, and then you immediately know who the character is. There's no build-up. Whereas if it was at the... Because it's a Smash presentation, so the second you see Anime Forest in that specific art style, you immediately know who the character is. There is no build-up whatsoever. But if they did it at the Game Awards, that'd be different, because, one, there was still the Fire Emblem Expansion Pass stuff coming out, and of course they announced the Cinder Ace stories, or whatever the heck I forget what it's called, but the main expansion for the expansion pass that added a new team or whatever. Not a new team, a new faction. I don't know what you want to call them. How there's the three of them. Okay, fun fact. I actually have 3 houses. I got it recently from GameStop for $27. Yeah, you heard me right. A recent-ish, in the grand scheme of things, Switch game for $27 new. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, I wish you could do that more often. But yeah, I actually have 3 houses. I haven't played it yet, though. But of course, I know about Elgard and Dimitri and... I forget what the name of the other one is. Claude. Yeah. I know about them. I know about, Bernie and whatnot. I know about some of the characters, but, well, not too much. I at least know what they look like. I know what their names are. And then, yeah, they added, a new faction that wore purple instead as the DLC. And they announced that the same day as Byleth, which, of course, was totally intentional. That's obviously synergy right there. But yeah, my main point is, the trailer felt but if they had that trailer at the Game Awards, then people wouldn't immediately jump to Smash. They'd be like, okay, so this is Fire Emblem. Is this going to be the new DLC? The new DLC for the game itself, not for Smash. And then, when they have Sophis say, so just join Smash already, then they'd be like, oh, okay, this is Smash. Now, yes, a lot of people would have still flipped their lids, but I don't think it would have been as bad as if they just had it at the Game Awards. I think I think it should have been the Game Awards. It still would have probably been a minefield, but at least it would have been less of a minefield, and the trailer would have made more sense. Whereas the second you show Anime Forest on the first frame, everyone knows what character it is. But if you have it at the Game Awards, it's not immediately this is Smash or it's Byleth. Oh, it's 3 houses obviously, but that doesn't mean it's 100%. You get what I mean. I think the reveal would have been better at the Game Awards. I know people disagree with me on that, but I think it should have been at the Game Awards, even if it still would have been a minefield. And speaking of that minefield, I'm obviously not the first person to say this, but I definitely think that minefield was really uncalled for. It's one thing if you just don't care about the character. It's another thing when you go as far as what people did when that character was revealed. People were screaming bloody murder. It's it was crazy. And again, the dislikes. No other character ever has gotten that many dislikes. Never. that is like the only other thing this year that rivaled that many dislikes was like Pokemon. What was it? Pokemon Unite. I forget, isn't that what it was called? Pokemon Unite. Like that's a whole other thing. I'm not really gonna talk about that too much because that's a Pokemon company thing, not a Nintendo thing. But yeah, Pokemon Unite. Yeah, that got 1 billion dislikes too. And they re-uploaded the trailer several times, and of course it did not work. Everyone's like, you can't escape it. You can't escape it. You can't just re-upload it. But I completely forgot about actually Pokemon Unite and that on all that stuff. But I'm not going to talk about that really, because again, that's a Pokemon company thing, not a Nintendo thing. But yeah, so point is, Byleth was basically Nintendo's introduction to 2020. And regardless of what you thought about him, it was not a great way to start off the year. I think Byleth should have been one of the earlier characters. I think it would have made way more sense for Byleth to be like in Hero's spot. Like you could still have Hero, but just have him come out later and have Byleth be like the second DLC character. Which means that yes, technically speaking, Byleth would be the character to open E3 instead of Hero, which I know a lot of people would say is worse. But here's the thing. We would still have Banjo. We would still have Breath of the Wild 2. We would still have Animal Crossing. So it wouldn't have been like the entire presentation has to hang on Byleth. Byleth is just one of the characters. And that, like obviously this trend of having like the kind of not so amazing character in the eyes of a lot of people, and then we have the super hype character, that's been done before. Like again, like with the previous Black Sheep, you know, with Corrin and Bayonetta. We had a Corrin and everyone's kind of like, okay, Corrin, sure, whatever, you know, the new game's coming out. And then Bayonetta was like, oh my god, Bayonetta! R.I.P. Etika, but yeah, like, you know, then everyone flipped out about Bayonetta, right? Well, that was basically what happened with Hero and Banjo. We had Hero was kind of the okay, sure, whatever. I guess I get why. And then Banjo was like, oh my god, Banjo! It would just be that, but obviously Hero is a stronger character than Byleth, at least in the eyes of the general public. But you get the point, right? They would have still had other characters and other stuff to fall back on. Whereas if they just had Byleth be, you know, the way it was just Byleth. There was no other character, so the entire thing had to kind of rely on him. And obviously that did not work for a lot of people. But, you know, what are you going to do, I guess? But I've already kind of talked about this whole Byleth thing long enough. Point is, I think that even though I think the hate he got was massively overblown, I will agree that Nintendo had horrible timing for him and that he should have been earlier in the pass because it would have made more sense. Like if he came out like when because Hero came out in like late July. Like at that point, like Three Houses would have been out for like a week. So the timing would have made way more sense because people would have been like, okay, they're having Byleth because the new game's coming out. It would have been like around the same time, as opposed to having Byleth be in January when it's been like months since the new game has been out, and long since everyone thought he was even going to be in the game anyway. And also again, like not having news, not having anything in the game more, it all just added up to Byleth's reveal exploding the way it did. And again, I still think that that he got way too much hate. Now, is he my favorite character? No, he isn't. And I will admit, he is my least favorite character as far as the DLC goes so far, but I don't hate him. I have no problem with him. I like his stage. The music is great, of course. Like I don't have any problem with him, even if he is my least favorite character so far. But the hate he got was was so ridiculous. Like it was so overblown. But, you know, whatever. Point is, Byleth. That happened. That was not a great start to 2020. Moving on. February. I don't think anything happened for at least Nintendo in February. I will be talking about other stuff that isn't just Nintendo, don't worry. But yeah, I don't think anything really happened in February, at least nothing super big. But March is when things really started to become a thing. March is when Doom Eternal came out. And this is also when, again, COVID was starting to become a really big thing. So this is when the whole thing of E3 being canceled and other events being canceled, tournaments being canceled. That's when all that stuff began to reach its peak. Also around this time is when we started to kind of get information on the PS5. That's when Mark Cerny had their little presentation that got disliked to death because reasons like you thought Byleth got dislikes. Look at the Road to PlayStation 5 thing. I know why it got dislikes. It got dislikes because people thought this was gonna be like the June event that we would get later on, like the event that has all the games. But instead, it was basically their like little like him just talking about the console in general, not talking about games or anything like that. They would have their games event later, and that event turned out pretty good in my opinion. But yeah, that event also kind of got unnecessarily disliked. but yeah, so Mark Cerny did his thing. We got Doom Eternal, and COVID started to become a big thing. And for Nintendo, this is where easily their biggest thing of the year came out: Animal Crossing. Oh my god, they hit it out of the park with Animal Crossing. At least when it comes to the timing. Like, I have the game. I like the game. It's nice. I haven't played it in a regular basis in a while because I've kind of run out of things to really do. But, you know, it's a good game. It's a good game, obviously. But Nintendo hit a gold mine with that game. Gold mine, because the game came out right as COVID was hitting its peak and people were stuck indoors and everything. It was... The timing could not have been better. Did you know that the game has sold like 28 copies? 28 million copies? You heard me right. This game is not even a year old yet, and it sold almost as much as like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I am dead serious. That is how good of a timing Nintendo got. That game could literally have not come out at a better time. It came out at literally the perfect time. It was the perfect game for the perfect time, and they got bank because of it. Like, seriously, that was easily Nintendo's biggest W of the year by far. At least, you know, like, come on, like, they could not have timed that any better. Of course, it was already set for March anyway, but, like, you know, as early as E3, you know, it was already set for March 20th or whatever, but man, they could not have gotten any better timing if they tried. They literally got perfect timing. So, Nintendo, obviously, huge win for them in March. Also, during March, they had their little mini direct, which, you know, it's like, yes, it was finally a direct, but it wasn't a full direct. But more importantly, there wasn't any real new announcements. It was basically just like talk about, like, the only new game we got was like the clubhouse, like the 51 clubhouse thing, which, you know, it's nice. It's kind of like a little return to like the Wii era of doing things, but like obviously it's just kind of like an eShop type game. It's not really like, you know, a full proper game, you know, like what people were hoping for. It was basically just the clubhouse game being announced, some more talk about Xenoblade Definitive Edition, and then we got the main announcement, which of course, well, pseudo announcement was, hey, ARMS character is coming. Guess who it's gonna be? And you know what? We don't have any confirmation on this. Maybe Sakurai in a couple of years and some Famitsu, you know, in some Famitsu column will bring this up. But as far as I can tell, the only reason why we had that like pseudo ARMS announcement and they didn't just have it already was because of COVID. I think that Min was supposed to come out earlier than she did. I think she was supposed to come out earlier than she did, but because of COVID, she got pushed back a couple of months. And that's why they had to like be like, hey, there's a new character, but we can't tell yet. Because they've never done that before. They have never pseudo-announced a character like that, where it's like, here's the franchise they're from, but we won't tell you who it is. That was clearly only done because of the pandemic and because things got pushed back. That's my opinion, at least. But regardless, we got that, and, you know, it wasn't the gigantic step up from Byleth that people were hoping for. Like, a lot of people were hoping for like another really big third-party character. And of course, we would eventually get some really big third-party characters later in the year. But Min was definitely like, okay, this is a bit more like it, but still not, you know, what people really wanted. I was totally on board with an ARMS character because an ARMS character is something that should have been in the base game. Why did we not get an ARMS character in the base game? It can't be for the reason why we didn't get Rex and Pyra, because ARMS was in development sooner than Xenoblade was, and it came out before Xenoblade. So chances are in 2016, when Sakurai was originally drawing up the plans for Ultimate, they probably had character designs for the ARMS fighters by then. Like, I don't know why we didn't get an ARMS character in the base game. But hey, we got one as DLC, and it was the character that I hoped they would put in, which is Min Min. You know, everyone was expecting Springman for the launch game, and of course that didn't happen. He was just an assist trophy. But hey, we got Min Min, which of course was the fan favorite. And of course, you know, the Etika rep too, so there was also that. Again, RIP. But yeah, so yeah, I would say, well, Min Min was no huge third party character. I would definitely consider Min Min yeah, you know, that was a good character. Again, I didn't mind Byleth, but you know, Min Min definitely liked her inclusion. I liked playing as her. The stage, well, you know, nothing super complicated. I liked it. It's really close to being legal. It's so close to being legal, but that thing at the top kind of kills it. But I don't really care. I still like the stage. And the trailer was really cool too. Like we got, you know, the cute little thing of, you know, Kirby, you know, drinking the noodles and stuff. We had Captain Falcon. We had, you know, all that stuff. That was all great. The animation, the trailer was great. The way they had all the ARMS characters fighting was great. Like the Min Min trailer was really cool, and I liked Min Min. Cool. But remember, that's June. That didn't come out until June. So I'm kind of skipping steps here. Now let's talk about April. To my knowledge, nothing happened really in April. At least for a Nintendo. But we did get some other big things. The main one I can think of is we finally got a game that people have wanted for a very, very long time. And while the impact of it didn't really hit me as hard because it wasn't the entire game, and I haven't played it yet, but like, even when it came out, I was kind of like, awesome, but it's not the full game, so it doesn't quite have the same impact I feel like it would have if it was the entire game. But of course, I'm talking about the game that finally only recently got its true representation in Smash, and of course we will get to that as we near the end of the year, because that's of course a very, very, very recent inclusion. But yes, the Final Fantasy VII Remake finally came out after 5 years of anticipation, and for the most part, it seems to be a slam dunk. I know I haven't played the game yet. I haven't even played the original. Okay, actually, that's a lie. I have played the original, but not that far in. Like, back when Cloud came out in 2015, I was like, okay, now I gotta play FF7. So on my PlayStation TV, if you don't know what a PlayStation TV was, it was basically a Vita you could hook up to your TV. I got FF7 on that, and I got as far as the Shinra headquarters, which is not that far in the game at all. Because, fun fact, even though everyone remembers FF7 for Midgar, and that's the most iconic location from the game, Midgar is not the entire game. Midgar is only like a third of the original, maybe even less. I forget. Because, again, I haven't played the original all the way, but I've heard people talk about, oh, Midgar is only like the first like 6 hours in the original of like this 40-50 hour game or whatever, so Midgar is not that big of a portion in the grand scheme of things, but it's the most iconic location. And of course, it's the area that got represented in the FF7 remake, because the big thing with the FF7 remake, of course, was like, oh, it's going to be multiple parts. So this is part 1, which they never labeled it, by the way. Now, of course, you and I, we've been following FF7 ever since it was announced in 2015. So we all knew it was going to be a multi-part thing, even as early as like 2016. But there were people out there that didn't know that the remake was only part 1. And I think part of that problem is because Square did not call it that. Now, officially on the website and in marketing and stuff, they call it the first part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake project. But why couldn't they have just called it part 1 on the box or something? Like, why couldn't they have called it Final Fantasy VII Remake part 1 or something like that? Like, now, when you just call it Final Fantasy VII Remake, it makes it feel like that's the entire game, when it's nowhere near the entire game. So, I don't know, but yeah. But the point is, I haven't played through all the original FF7 yet. It is on Game Pass now, though, on both Xbox One and PC. So if you have Game Pass and you want to play it, and especially with, again, recent events, you really want to play it, well, it's right there. Go play it. So yeah, I do really want to play the remake, though, regardless, even though it's only just Midgar. I just want to wait until I finish the original first, because I think it would be wrong of me to play the remake without playing the original, especially because, you know, the ending and stuff kind of like expects you to have played the original anyway. And of course, that's where we get into the whole thing of like, so yeah, for the most part, people liked the FF7 remake. There were problems with it, Like I know people kind of talked about, the side quests aren't amazing and stuff like that, but for the most part, people loved it. Like they thought the characters was good. They like for the most part, the story was good. Like there was a lot of things in the remake people like. The soundtrack was really good, but the ending is where people got split. The ending is like probably the deciding factor for the game for a lot of people. If you liked the ending, you probably loved the game. If you didn't like the ending, you probably hated the game. Now, that might be an overgeneralization. Of course, people can, feel how they want to feel. But that definitely seems to be the deciding factor for people is, did you like the ending or not? Now, I haven't played the game, but I've seen Max. If you know who Max is, then, yeah. I've watched Max play, like, the final part of the game. I won't tell you, if you somehow have not played the remake yet, I won't tell you what the ending is. All I'm going to tell you is that it is very divisive, and chances are your enjoyment of the game might be hinged on that ending. But yeah, aside from that, though, it was mostly really well received, and I really want to play it, but I'm not going to play it until I finish the original. So yeah, remake, obviously, huge deal. Finally came out after years of anticipation, and for the most part, it hit it out of the park. But aside from that, I don't think anything else really happened. I don't think anything happened with Microsoft. Microsoft did start to talk more about the Series X around that time, but we didn't really get anything super substantial probably until like May, June, July. July is when they had their, event and whatnot. But we'll get to that when we get to it. And then Nintendo didn't have anything I don't think Nintendo had anything in April. Not that I can remember. Not a single game. Nothing. So moving on to May. Now, for Nintendo in May, they had 2 releases. They had the Clubhouse games, which, again, is more of an eShop thing, so it's kind of like whatever. I know people liked it, but, it's like an eShop type thing. It's not anything super amazing. But, of course, their main release for May was, of course, Xenoblade Definitive Edition, which is kind of ironic because Xenoblade X came out in Japan in May, and Xenoblade 3D back in 2015 came out in May, I think. So it's kind of interesting how Xenoblade kind of has this pattern of May, with the exception of Xenoblade 2 coming out in December. But yeah, so we got Xenoblade Definitive Edition. It was also pretty much met with universal acclaim. It looks really nice. Honestly, even though it's called Definitive Edition, and that would make it sound like more of a remaster, it's kind of like okay, I know in my Nintendo in 2020 video earlier this year, I said, oh, come on, this thing is totally a remake. I mean, look at it. It's totally a remake. It looks nothing like the original. The more I've seen side-by-side gameplay, I kind of want to retract that statement to, it's like a hybrid between a remake and a remaster. It definitely looks a lot better than the original, but it's not quite, it's not, but it's also, but it definitely still retains stuff from the original. Like it's like a hybrid between a remake and a remaster. But regardless, it looks really good. All the main characters look good. I know some people are kind of like, they look too anime. Like I think they look great, so I don't really see a problem with that. Yeah, and of course, the remastered soundtrack is pretty good. They even include an option to have either the original or the remastered soundtrack, so you get both either way. And yeah, for the most part, it was met with, again, pretty much unanimous acclaim, pretty much. I mean, Xenoblade 1 has always been a beloved title, but obviously having it in HD, with more modern graphics on a popular console. I mean, the Wii was popular, but by 2012, when it came out in the US after Operation Rainfall and everything, the Wii was basically dead. So yeah, Xenoblade Definitive Edition and Clubhouse for Nintendo. And I don't did anything. Okay, this is when Xbox had their first real event, their first Series X gameplay showcase, which didn't go over well, and they were like, okay, clearly you guys did not like this, we're gonna fix this in the future. So I like that. I like it when companies kind of they're like, yes, we screwed up, we're gonna improve this. I like it when they do that, because I feel like that doesn't happen enough these days, when companies acknowledge that we did something wrong and we are gonna fix it and do better. That's something that should be more common, but what are you gonna do? So yeah, I don't think outside of that event, I don't think there was really any other notable game releases. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm forgetting a game here. Maybe I am, but as far as I can remember, there wasn't any other super big notable releases. So yeah, we got Xenoblade, and then Microsoft had their little event, their little Series X gameplay showcase, but also not really or whatever. June. June is where... Oh, wait, hold on. I forgot something. In May is when something that would trickle down for the rest of the year happened. So obviously I hinted at the whole, oh, you poor souls who thought you were actually going to get a Nintendo Direct this year, right? Or like a proper Nintendo Direct. Well, May is when we got the surprise announcement of Paper Mario the Origami King. Out of nowhere, no anticipation, no nothing. It literally just dropped one morning. And everyone was like, wait, what? Like, I already predicted that we were going to get a Paper Mario game this year because it felt like it was about the right time for it. Because, 2016 was Color Splash. It's been like 4 years. It's about time we get another one. Now, of course, how the game would turn out is a different story. And, of course, what your thoughts are on Origami King is, of course, going to be divisive. Personally, I am a part of the, 64,000 Year Door crew. So, of course, I'm going to generally be on that side. But I liked Color Splash. It's not the 1,000 Year Door, obviously. But, for what it is, I liked it. I haven't played Origami King yet, but I'll probably, get it one day. And I'll probably enjoy it for what it is. But obviously, I'm obviously on the side of, I want the games to be like the 1,000 Year Door with badges and partners and, a deep, well, quote-unquote deep story. Well, not deep story. That's not the right word. An original story with original characters. Or something, you get my point, like the way it was in the first two games, basically. I want, like the first two games. But, as we saw from interviews, that's not really possible anymore because of some restriction within the company. It's, like, weird. It was really weird. But, yeah, the point is, the game was announced randomly. And at first, I was kind of like, okay, this is kind of weird, but, whatever. But that would continue to be a thing for basically the remainder of the year, where they would have just announced stuff randomly without any anticipation. They did this like 3, maybe 4 times. It was kind of weird. So yeah. But June. So June, we got. So this is when Sony had their. This is when this was what would have ordinarily would have been E3 month, right? June would have ordinarily have been E3 month. But of course, it was not E3 month. It was not anywhere close to E3 month. We basically just got one presentation that month, which I'm pretty sure was just Sony's, which was cool. And I thought that the Sony presentation was pretty good. We got a lot of big games. We got Gran Turismo. We got Ratchet and Clank. We got Horizon. We got all that stuff. We even got some big third-party announcements. So, cool. It was overall pretty good. And we finally got to see what the hardware looked like, and of course all the memes about a router and everything, combined with the whole, Series X thing with the fridge, all that stuff. But, so yeah, the PlayStation 5 event finally happened. It was delayed a little bit because of the George Floyd stuff, because it was supposed to happen on June, because remember, and because again, I'm trying to, not talk about, that kind of stuff too much here. I want to focus on the gaming/tech stuff, but of course, at the end of May, George Floyd, was, obviously killed. And because of that, there was, of course, that's when, the Black Lives Matter thing started. And, and all that stuff is when it really started to become a big thing. And because of that, Sony actually delayed their event from, I believe, June 4th to June 11th. So we did get it about a week later, which I didn't really mind because I totally understood. It's like, oh, yeah, sure, I get it. I didn't really have a problem with it. But obviously a lot of people were annoyed. But regardless, when the event did finally come out on June 11th, it was, in my opinion, it was pretty solid. I don't know, an 8 out of 10, maybe. It wasn't perfect, but it was overall pretty good. I would say it's pretty good. We finally got to see what the hardware looked like. We've seen the controller for months at that time. We were all like, what does the console look like? What does the console look like? And when it was finally shown, I was honestly kind of surprised. Because I was kind of like, I did not think it would look like that. Say what you will about the design, but the PlayStation 5 looks next-gen. It looks futuristic. You gotta give it that, right? You gotta give it that. It looks like a next-gen console. When you look at it, it screams next-gen. That combined with the fact that the PS5 had a brand new controller, whereas, the Series X just kind of had basically the Xbox One controller with an extra button on it, which does have its advantages, by the way, and I love the Xbox One controller, but obviously Sony has had more of that next-gen feel going for it, whereas the Series X, by comparison, for a lot, especially because the UI was the same as the Xbox One and everything, it kind of made it feel more like it was just a spec bump and not really a next-generation experience. Like, okay, it's just an Xbox One with better specs, whereas, like, the PS5 had a brand new UI, a brand new controller, a brand new looking device, you know, and of course they harped on the SSD a lot, you know, whether or not that really meant anything was, of course, a story for another time. But the main problem that I had, like, okay, I didn't have a problem with them being all next gen, SSD. I didn't really mind that too much because it's like, okay, sure. The problem was when they were all like, oh, and of course, like, there was the whole thing with Microsoft being like, no Xbox left behind. We're going to put all our games on all the Xboxes for the next couple of years because we don't want to drop anyone. We want to make it so everyone can play the games because that's kind of been their thing recently, right? Especially with, you know, bringing Game Pass to more platforms and having xCloud and stuff. Like, Microsoft's approach to gaming is definitely different from Sony. Sony is kind of basically just continuing the traditional, you know, console generation type stuff, whereas Microsoft is doing more than that. Yes, they got a next-gen console, but they also have the Series S, which was at launch. They had, and of course, they have xCloud and stuff. So basically, their thing is less about the hardware and more about just being able to play games wherever you want, whereas Sony is all about the hardware and having their hardware be the place to play your games and getting the most out of your games when they're designed for the hardware, which is why they kept harping on the SSD a lot. Like, that was the main thing, right? Because of course, from a specs perspective, the Series X was better every other way, but the PS5 had the SSD advantage, and that's why Sony harped on it so much. That being said, I'm not here to discredit the SSD, because the SSD, once we get to that point where games are made exclusively for the next-gen consoles, with no consideration whatsoever for the previous-gen consoles that are still running on old hard drives, once we reach the true next-gen era, because right now we're in cross-gen, right? The new consoles have only just been released, which means that games right now, while they are on the next-gen consoles, and they may be the next-gen versions, they're not going to really be next-gen until the previous generation consoles have dropped and they stop having to, you know, make the games work on both. The only game so far that really seems to be taking advantage of the SSD in any real way, of course, is Ratchet and Clank. With that, you know, that trailer we got, you know, that trailer was like designed to basically validate the SSD and be like, yeah, you cannot do that on a hard drive, and you can't load in stuff like that at that fast of a rate on a hard drive, especially like the old, like 5400 RPM 500 gig drives that are in like the old 2013 PS4s. Like, that'll never happen. But anyway, I guess my main point here is just, yeah, PlayStation 5 had their big event and that was pretty good. We didn't get anything else. Because E3 was canceled, right? So we didn't get any of the other events, and of course we didn't get a Nintendo event. We never got a Nintendo event, unfortunately. And I already talked about Min Min, so I won't really talk about that. But so yeah, mainly Min Min and the PS5 presentation were the main two things that really happened that month that I can really remember. July. So July is when we got the events for basically everyone else. We got EA had their event, which did not go over well. Ubisoft had their event, which from what I heard was kind of all right. Microsoft had their event, finally. And like, okay, I thought overall it was good, but I thought the PlayStation 5 event was definitely better. The main thing that sunk that event was the showing of the game people have wanted to see for years, which of course was Halo Infinite. And here's the thing. I thought the gameplay looked fine, with one exception. So obviously it didn't look as good as the previous trailer from 2019. Like, that trailer looked like really good, whereas the gameplay we saw at that event in 2020 did not look as good by comparison. But I also wasn't super surprised, because it was kind of like, well, it's being made because it's being made with the Xbox One in mind, like the base 2013 Xbox One. So I was like, kind of like, okay. But obviously a lot of people ripped into it, and of course Digital Foundry did their videos on it and everything. And it was not a good look. And of course Craig became a meme. Like, I thought overall the gameplay looked fine. It didn't look next gen, obviously, but I thought it overall looked fine, at least from like the compressed trailer footage. If we had like a uncompressed feed or a high bitrate feed to look at, I could probably notice the problems more noticeably. But at least in that compressed feed, it kind of looked fine, honestly, in my opinion. But obviously, a lot of people thought it looked really bad, and it did not look next gen compared to Sony's like, oh, we got these next gen games only on next generation. Which, of course, they would kind of sort of backtrack on later on, and we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, honestly, outside of Halo Infinite, I thought the event was overall, it was all right. Like it wasn't amazing, but I thought it was all right. They had some big announcements in there. They had Fable and stuff like that. But a lot of the games they did showcase were either years away, or they weren't or they're like third party. But Halo Infinite was definitely supposed to be kind of the big showcase, and that did not end well. So yeah, but that's what happened in July. Also, I believe during this time, was it July or August? I forget if it was July or August. I'm going to say for July, but it might have been August. But I'm going to say for July. Actually, no. Was it? I think it was August, actually. You know what? We'll just go. I'll save it for August, yeah. So, yeah, basically all of the not E3, but basically E3 events happened in July. And, none of them went over particularly well. But the Microsoft one is definitely the one that people will point to the most, namely with the Halo Infinite footage. And of course, due to more recent events, it's possible that they might even cancel the Xbox One version, but we'll get to that when we get to it. And yeah, oh wait, there's one last thing. I forgot to talk about. This is a very important thing to talk about. Now, I don't remember. I'm gonna look right now. So, I apologize if you hear me clacking on the keyboard. But there is one game that came out. I don't know if it was late June or if it was early July. But it's a game that's become extremely infamous. And a game that is easily the most divisive game probably ever. If it's not ever, it's certainly over the last couple of years. And of course this year, easily. Okay, it was June. So actually no. So yeah, June actually. But I gotta bring it up because it's obviously it feel weird for me to not bring it up. But this is when a game that, again, you're noticing this pattern of games that have been long awaiting being announced are finally coming out. Well, The Last of Us Part 2 finally came out after years of anticipation. And yeah. I'm not really going to talk about this too much because I haven't played the game, but it's The Last of Us Part 2, so this right here, no exaggeration. I'm far from the first one to say this. This is the last Jedi of gaming. The Last Jedi, right, was this super divisive movie that was either a masterpiece or it destroyed Star Wars, depending on what you thought about it. Imagine that, but for this game. That's basically what it was. There were a lot of people that thought it was amazing, and it was a masterpiece, and it was fantastic storytelling, etc., etc. And then there was also an equally large amount of people that thought it was horrible. It destroyed the characters. It destroyed the world. Yeah, it was bad writing. They were pandering. All that stuff. This game is extremely divisive. It still is. Although it's not talked about as much as it used to be. Although it has been talked about probably a bit more recently due to, again, recent events that we will get to in a bit. But yeah, The Last of Us Part 2. That was definitely Sony's big game of the year. And while it sold well, I mean, of course it would, because the original Last of Us was, critically praised and everything. And not everyone loved The Last of Us Part 1, but a lot of people did. Certainly more than the second game, that's for sure. But yeah, and of course there was all the stuff about, Naughty Dog not paying their employees enough or overtime and stuff. Naughty Dog in The Last of Us Part 2 is just kind of this huge freaking thing for a while, and I don't think I need to really say too much about it more, because honestly, everything that's been said about The Last of Us Part 2 can be said. Again, I haven't played it. I do have the original on PlayStation Plus. I was thinking about playing it, but I'm not sure if I will now, because it's kind of So I really want to play that game and get possibly invested in the characters just for the second game to happen and like kind of undo all that. I don't know. But, whether you're not, if you like The Last of Us Part 2, cool. And if you hate The Last of Us Part 2, cool. I personally don't really care. I don't have any investment in these characters or this story. But obviously, The Last of Us Part 2, extremely, extremely, extremely divisive. Definitely the last Jedi of gaming, and it'll probably still have that title for years to come. But moving on from that to the other big there was other releases too, but the other big PS4 release of that, unlike The Last of Us Part 2, was almost unanimously acclaimed, Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima, unlike The Last of Us Part 2, was not mired in controversy, it was not mired in developer overtime, it was not mired in anything. For the most part, people loved Ghost of Tsushima. Everyone seemed to love it. Everyone basically unanimously agreed that it was like better than The Last of Us Part 2. okay, that's probably a lie, but you know what I mean, right? Like Ghost of Tsushima was what The Last of Us Part 2 should have been in terms of like reception, The Last of Us Part 2 was supposed to be their big, yeah, this is awesome. And it didn't really pan out that way, at least not for a lot of people. Ghost of Tsushima, on the other hand, was almost unanimously critically acclaimed. So, again, I haven't played it, but a lot of people love it. So, obviously, that went over really well. And the game even got a PS5 patch that allowed 60 FPS. So, yeah, Ghost of Tsushima, unlike The Last of Us Part 2, definitely was a knockout of the park for people, that's for sure. And in my opinion, that should have been Game of the Year. Because unlike the other game, whereas yes, The Last of Us Part 2 was obviously loved by a lot of people, it was also hated by a lot of people. But by comparison, Ghost of Tsushima was loved by almost everyone. So wouldn't it make more sense for that game to win? But we'll get to the Game Awards later. Yeah, so I just gonna say I forgot about The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, so I thought I'd bring that up real quick. Okay, August. We've been going for 46 minutes here, and I still have a couple months to go here. August. Now, August is where things start to get kind of crazy when it comes to Nintendo. Up until this point, there really hasn't been too much, but it also hasn't been too crazy either. August is when that changes. No. Not August. July again. I keep forgetting stuff. But, actually, July... Hold on a second. Alright, I'm back. I just had to, let my cat out for a second. But anyways. So, yeah, I completely forgot about this. But actually, there was one last thing in July I should have brought up. And that was... This is when the partner showcases first begun, and people did not take kindly to them, but it was not necessarily because of what was in the presentation, although admittedly the first two weren't amazing, although the first one did have SMT. It had SMT5, which obviously a lot of people have been waiting years and years for. Again, with this thing of games that we have been anticipated for years and years. But yeah, so the partner showcases. This was basically... So, here's the thing about the partner showcases. I personally believed, even back then, that they were a good idea at the wrong time. If this was any other year, I think people would have taken a lot more kindly to them. But people hated the first, two partner showcases because people were dying of Nintendo drought. People were like, we want new Nintendo info, and they weren't giving it to us. They were like, it was almost like they went out of their way to not give us info, and people were really, really frustrated by it. So, when we got the partner showcases, people just considered that a slap in the face. Although, again, we got SMT5 in that first one, so I was actually cool with it. The second one, it didn't really have anything super amazing, but I think it was definitely better, I think, from what I remember. And then, the last two were overall pretty solid. I think it was... Okay, so... The first one had SMT. The second one, I don't remember what was in it. The third one was all music games, basically. And then the last one was the best one by far. It was the one that had Monster Hunter Rise and stuff like that in it, and it also had Ori 2. That was pretty good. People were, by the time they stopped doing the partner showcases, people were cool with them. But it wasn't just because the announcements got better. It was also because of the fact that by that point they actually announced Nintendo stuff, so people weren't... Because, like, basically, people were attacking the partner showcases for being something that they weren't. They were like, we want Nintendo info. And because we weren't getting any, people bashed the hell out of the partner showcases. They also got disliked to death. At least the first two did. The last two didn't really. But because, again, by that time we actually got Nintendo info, so people weren't as hostile. So people were kind of like, okay, sure, whatever. And again, the last one people did like, but yeah, the partner showcases, yeah, if they were in any other year, I think people would be cool with them, because the partner showcases are basically just third-party directs. But that's the problem. They're third-party directs in a year where people are starved for Nintendo info. So that's why people hated them at first. But eventually people warmed up to them. And I think if they did one now, people would be cool with it. But, but at the same time, I think the only reason why we got the partner showcases was because we didn't get proper Nintendo Directs otherwise. Like, probably, like, my guess is at least part of those partner showcases were supposed to be at E3, but because Nintendo didn't do their E3 Direct, they were like, okay, we'll give you guys your own Directs, basically. Since they weren't ready to show any of their stuff, or they didn't want to do their stuff in any regular Direct. Yes, I just dropped an iFixit screwdriver, so that's in the recording, so that's cool. but yeah, so okay, moving on from that now. So yeah, August. Pikmin 3 Deluxe was randomly dropped out of nowhere in early August, I believe. And this is when the rumors for the Xbox Series S started to really heat up. I did a couple of videos. I did Nin-Cast earlier this year called The Next Generation. I did the videos on the Series S, the Series X, the PS5. I even did a video on talking about how is the Switch gonna be going, afterwards. And of course, even during this time, there were still, rumors of the Switch Pro and whatnot. Still to this day, the Switch Pro rumors have been around for 2 years. But that's a topic for another day. I probably already talked about the Switch Pro in that initial what about the Nintendo Switch video. So if you really want to hear me talk about the Switch Pro, I'm pretty sure I talk about it in that video from a couple months ago, which is probably still relevant anyway. So yeah, August was mainly when we got that was mainly rumors, and we got Pikmin 3. We also got another partner showcase, and yeah, this is when people were starting to get even more heated about Nintendo. And then September happens, and it all changes, because we got not one but two big announcements in early September. First, we got a surprise Mario 35th Anniversary Direct, which announced many things, but the most notable of which was the long-rumored 3D collection was finally announced as Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and people were super hyped for it. Mostly. But there was one tiny thing that was keeping people's hype down, and that was the limited release thing. And this limited release thing is basically the beginning of a trend that would happen for the rest of the year when it comes to Nintendo, where they would make really stupid, annoying choices. But well, at least when it comes to like corporate stuff. But we'll get to the corporate stuff later, because that affects more like November and December than it says September. But yeah, so 3D All Stars. We also got the announcement of like a new Mario Kart, like a Mario Kart, like not a new Mario Kart, but like but like with the real life karts and stuff. We also got Super Mario Bros 35th, like the Super Mario Bros 35th thing, which was like Tetris 99 but with Mario Bros, which is also limited time. Yeah, I'm noticing a trend here, right? We also got the announcement of the also long-rumored Super Mario 3D World Deluxe, except it's called Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, which is a callback, I guess, to like the Mario and Luigi remakes. Rest in peace, Alpha Dream. But yeah, what happened there? Oh, actually, hold on. I just completely forgot about something. I keep forgetting about something. I already kind of talked about Origami King a little bit, but yeah, Origami came out in July, and it was interesting. Well, I'll just kind of leave that at that, because there's not really that much I have to really say about Origami King, honestly. But anyways, darn it, where was I? Oh yeah, so yeah, we got 3D All Stars. That was the big announcement, right? It was 64 Sunshine Galaxy, all in 1080p. Well, okay, in HD anyway, because 64 is only 720p. And for the most part, people were pretty excited, but the limited release thing was really weird. And people had theories as to why they were doing it. I think the biggest theory was they were making it limited time because they were not doing well that year because of everything being pushed back. So they needed to have something because the expiration date is March 31st, right, for 3D All-Stars as well as a couple of other things. But the thing is, that is like right before or right after like their one of their big like meetings or something, like one of their big financial meetings. So they wanted to they wanted to have guaranteed good numbers to report or something. That was like the theory behind it. Now, their official reasoning for why it was limited time was it's more special if it's limited time. And here's the thing. You can hate that all you want, but it's technically not really wrong. I get what they mean by that. Because if you have it be limited time, it makes it more special to have it because, hey, this thing is limited time. But here is the flaw, the crucial flaw in the whole limited time release thing for 3D All-Stars. Oh, sure, maybe they'll get more sales in the short run, but they'd get way more sales just by continuing to sell it. Like here, I'm going to give an example that I've given time and time again. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the best-selling game on the system. It has like 30 million copies or something like that, right? Imagine if they only sold that for 6 months and then it went away forever. That 30 million would be nowhere near 30 million. It would be like 5 million. That right there is exactly why, no matter how Nintendo wants to rationalize it, there is no purpose at all to making it limited time, because you would sell far more copies in the long run than just getting a short time burst by having it be 6 months only. And here's the thing, if they just had the physical copies be limited time only and just had the digital version be forever, I would have been fine with that. I think most people would have been fine with that. But the problem is, like, that's the main problem. The problem is not that it's limited time, it's that it's limited time on the eShop. If they got rid of the physical copies after March 31st, fine, because everyone that wanted a physical copy would have already gotten it anyway. But why would you get rid of it on the eShop? There is no purpose. You could sell far more copies of the game in the long run, because newsflash, 64 Sunshine and Galaxy are beloved classics. People will want to play these games for years to come. Why would you cut it off at 6 months? It makes no sense. So while I kind of understand their reasoning for, oh, it's more special if it's limited time, it doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold up, because you will sell far more copies in the long run by just having it be available. So, I don't know. And personally, I believe that it's not going to actually be limited time. Maybe 3D All-Stars itself will go away at March 31st, but the games are still going to be available. Like, my prediction is they are going to either just be like, never mind, it's still going to be up on the eShop. Like, they'll basically just do the thing I was hoping that they should have just done in the first place, where the physical copies are time limited, but the digital version stays up as long as the eShop is around. Or, so they will either do that, so they can technically be correct that it did go away on March 31st and look like they, basically a way to save face, sort of, where, oh, we technically got rid of it on March 31st by getting rid of the physical copies, but it'll still be on the eShop. They will either do that, or they will just release them separately for like $20 or something. Oh, and I do think Galaxy 2 is coming. I 100% think Galaxy 2 is going to come. We'll see, but I think it is happening. I think it's going to come in like January or February. It might even come out around the time that the game gets unlisted, actually, even too. Assuming it really does get unlisted, but yeah, 3D All-Stars, like, limited release aside, that thing aside, also had its own set of controversy, namely with the fact that it was basically just basically just an emulation. I honestly don't have a problem with it just being like 1080p and that's it, because that's all I wanted. Like, all I wanted was just the games but HD in widescreen. My only real problem, aside from the limited time release thing with 3D All-Stars, is that 64 is only 4:3. They made Sunshine 16:9. Why not get 64? There's literally a version of Mario 64 that you can get on the Switch if you know what you're doing. That's literally 1080p, 60 FPS, widescreen. If they can do it, Nintendo can do it, but I don't even know anymore. But so yeah, aside from 64 not having 16:9 and the game being limited time, I liked 3D All Stars. But obviously, a lot of people had problems with it, and there were some glaring issues with it, and just in terms of the games themselves. Like Sunshine had quite a few problems. Thankfully, most of the issues with Sunshine were fixed. They even added back in GameCube controller support, which, why wasn't GameCube controller support there at launch? Why was the GameCube game... Why did the GameCube game not get GameCube controller support? Smash supports it. And of course, you could technically play the game with the GameCube controller because the Switch treats the GameCube controller and everything that isn't Smash as a Pro controller. But of course, there's not enough buttons for the Pro controller layout. But point is, in November, they did fix most of the problems with Sunshine, and they did add proper GameCube controller support with the analog triggers and everything. So basically, now if you play Sunshine in 3D All Stars, it plays exactly like it did in the original. If you're using a GameCube controller. Also, they added various camera controls for all the games too. So it's like that was an update that was much well needed. But it should have been there at launch. But yeah, because by the time it released, it was kind of too little, too late. Everyone's already played the game, so it's cool for anyone that's gonna be replaying it in the future. So like obviously, when I replay the game, you know, maybe a couple of years from now or whatever, I'll be able to play it with full GameCube controller support now instead of just using the Pro controller. Even though I didn't have a problem with the Pro controller for the most part, but obviously having two different buttons for Flood was kind of annoying. But you know, whatever. At least now we can play the game the proper way. Now, even if it was a bit late. But that's about 3D All-Stars. Let's get into the other game that was announced. This game, for all practical purposes, seemed like this was Nintendo's holiday title. And yeah, it was. And that was the surprise announcement that came out of literally nowhere of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Which, of course, is basically the Breath of the Wild Hyrule Warriors, which by itself is not super surprising, but we did already get Definitive Edition like 2 years ago, so it's kind of like, I don't know. But here's the main thing about Age of Calamity that excited people. It wasn't the fact that it was a Warriors game, it was the fact that it was basically following the route that Scramble did. Like, you know, okay, so, well, Scramble, now known as Strikers, right? Now known as Strikers. Oh, shoot, I just forgot something else. I didn't talk about Royal. Well, actually, no, I'm not going to talk about Royal because I haven't finished it yet. But I will probably talk about Royal, like, once I actually finish it. I might do a whole video on it, actually, but we'll save Royal for another day. Yeah, Royal came out this year, and also Scramble came out in Japan this year. And finally, after months and months and months and months of waiting, probably because of the pandemic, or actually, no, not the pandemic, because there was a Steam version they were secretly working on. Strikers is coming out because it's, because Scramble is now called Strikers, even though I think it should have just been called Scramble, even though Strikers is a better name. I've already went over this 1,000 times in streams and stuff. I'm not going to say it here. I'll save the Persona talk for next year. But yeah, Age of Calamity. But yeah, the main reason why I'm bringing up Scramble/Strikers, because again, now it's called Strikers, is Scramble/Strikers was exciting because it wasn't just a Warriors game. It was like a actual Persona game with an actual story and all the same stuff you'd have in a Persona game, but just with the Warriors combat. And even that looked pretty cool. I mean, from what I've played of the demo, it was pretty nice. And from what we've seen from the trailers, it looks pretty cool. And obviously now that it's finally coming out in February, I can't wait to play it. But basically, the point is, like, it wasn't just Persona Warriors, right? It was a Persona game with an actual story and everything that just happened to have the combat of Warriors. That is what my impression of Age of Calamity was going to be. It was, oh, this is basically Scramble, but for Zelda, where it's a Warriors game, but it's not just a Warriors game. The whole thing, right, was that it was a prequel. It was a prequel. It was the prequel to Breath of the Wild, you know, 100 years before Calamity began and all that stuff, right, or whatever. And whether or not it really is like that is, of course, up to debate. I haven't finished it yet. I'm currently on like chapter 5. Like I'm definitely not done yet, and I haven't gotten any spoilers yet. The only thing I have heard is that it's probably not actually canon, but again, I haven't gotten that far yet. I might stream it actually later today, but we'll see how that goes. Because I haven't played it in a while. But But yeah, so Age of Calamity was announced, and obviously that got people super hyped, especially because people were hoping for Breath of the Wild 2 this year. And of course, now that, like, I thought that Breath of the Wild 2 was going to come out this year, 100%. But it got delayed because of the pandemic until Age of Calamity was announced. And then it was like, okay, it was never going to come out this year. It was never going to come out this year once we knew about Age of Calamity, because it's like, okay, why would they release a prequel and a sequel in the same year? That wouldn't make any sense. So no, it was always going to be 2021 probably at that point. So whatever. But I didn't really mind that, because it's like, hey, we're still getting a new Zelda game technically. So yeah, Age of Calamity, that got announced. People got really hyped for it, and yeah, it came out in November. Now and I already talked about, like, oh, there was another partner showcase and whatnot. Oh, we got the Series S reveal finally after it was leaked, like actually leaked. Microsoft just kind of threw up their hands and they're like, you know what, whatever, here it is. So we got the Series S finally announced. PlayStation had another event that revealed God of War, a new God of War, and other things like that. So that was cool. We got Final Fantasy 16 announced. So yeah, that was what happened in 2020, not 2020. That was what happened in September. October. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think there was anything too big, but oh boy. The beginning of October, in my opinion, started off with a freaking bang with the reveal of one of my most anticipated characters, Steve. And as I've talked about before, I used to be super against Steve. Like in 2018 when like that one guy was like, there's going to be something from Minecraft in the game. I was like, no, keep it the hell away from Smash. And even though I liked Minecraft, I still didn't want it anywhere near Smash. But as time went on and as more rumors came, as more people kind of supported it, I was kind of like, you know what? I went from hating him wanting to be in the, well, not wanting him to be in the game, to being like, please get in the game. So when he was finally announced on October 1st, I was super thrilled, and then I was super thrilled. It was easily my favorite character. It's probably my favorite character we've gotten so far in terms of the DLC. And yeah, I was super happy. And yeah, you can go if you really want to. I still have my reaction up from when he was announced, so you can just go back in the channel like a month or so and you'll see it. But yeah, I was super happy. All my friends were super happy because they were also Steve supporters. My brother was flipping the hell out in the other room. It was awesome. Obviously, Steve has had his detractors, but for the most part, people loved Steve. So yeah, Steve, awesome way, and we finally got a big third-party character for the first time since really Banjo, if you think about it. Because Terry, he was a third-party character, but he wasn't super big. But Banjo was the last really big third-party character, so we finally got another big third-party character, and I'm glad that we got Steve. The only other character that I really want personally is Master Chief, but I don't think we're gonna get him because we already got Steve. Like, how are we gonna get Master Chief, right? That's pretty unlikely. Yeah, we got Steve. I was super thrilled, extremely happy with that. His stage is cool, although I wish we had the C418 music, but I get it, copyright nonsense. But for the most part, love Steve. Love that he finally got in the game, and that was a great way to start off the month. Outside of that, not much else really happened, at least in terms of Nintendo. Of course, more lead up for the Series X and the PS5, as games were going gold and whatnot. Miles Morales. Oh yeah, I think around this time is when it was announced that yes, Miles Morales will be on PS4, which doesn't surprise me because everyone kind of already was like, it's Spider-Man DLC. So I think I already kind of expected, it to be on the PS4 anyway. But what I did not expect was that they would announce that the new Horizon game, Horizon Forbidden West, is going to be on PS4. Now that weirded me out because I thought that was I thought that was for sure gonna be a PS5 exclusive. Like Miles Morales, I get it because it's a launch title and it's basically, kind of an add-on of sorts for the original anyway. So I kind of understood that. But like, really, you're gonna put Horizon on PS4? That just felt weird to me. Also, they announced that Sackboy was gonna be on PS4, but that didn't surprise like literally anyone because come on, Sackboy. Plus, Little Big Planet 3 was on PS3 in 2014, so yeah. But yeah, so that was kind of weird, and that goes back to the thing I was talking about earlier, where it's like, yeah, our games are next gen only. We're not doing cross gen. We want to fully take advantage of the hardware, and then like 5 of your upcoming games are on the PS4. Like, you can't, like, if you're gonna have the games be on PS4 as well, that's fine. But don't go bragging about how we're not doing what Xbox is doing. We're gonna make our games truly next gen, and then have like Horizon be on the PS4. Maybe even God of War is on the PS4 as well. We don't know, but it's like you can't do both. You can't have both. It's either you're fully next gen or you aren't. You can't say you're both. Even if the console has a more of a next gen feeling, you can't just be like that and then also be like, oh yeah, our games are gonna be on PS4 as well. It doesn't work. But yeah, so not really much to say about October outside of Steve for me, honestly. But November, obviously, big month. We finally got, we got Age of Calamity, and most importantly, we got the release of both of the next-gen consoles, both the PlayStation 5 and the Series X and S, finally released, and you could not buy one. This is going to be the beginning of a trend you will probably notice. Oh, shoot, I just forgot another thing. I'll save it for later, actually. I'll talk about it after I talk about the consoles, because it kind of all works together. But, I keep forgetting a lot of things. I should just have like a list when I make one of these videos, so I can just like go off a list instead of having to think of everything. But anyways. So yeah, you could not buy a PS5 or a Series X. You still can't buy one because of scalpers and because of the pandemic causing shortages. Which I guess now brings us to the other things that came out this year. So, I completely forgot to bring this up, even though it's been kind of the only thing I've been thinking about recently. But, obviously this year was not just a big year for gaming when it comes to consoles, it's also a big year for gaming when it comes to the PC. Because we got Intel released their, 9th version of Skylake this year with Comet Lake and with 14 nanometer plus whatever, but it does have up to 10 cores and 20 threads, so that was cool. So that came out in like May, I think, so I forgot to bring that up. And probably the bigger one definitely was Nvidia finally released the new 3000 series, which people like me that have been on the 1000 series for years, because the 2000 series was kind of like whatever. It was like, yes, and like, the 3070 is a 2080 Ti. Yes, this is awesome. This is exactly what I wanted. And you couldn't buy any of them. You still can't buy any of them unless you want to pay for a scalper. Does this sound familiar? Because it should. Then, AMD came out with guns blazing with not only their new graphics cards, the RTX 6000 series, or the RX 6000 series, but more importantly for me, something I've been waiting for a long time for, Zen 3 finally came out. And stop me if you've heard this before. You can't buy any of them because scalpers are taking all of them and selling them for like $1,000. You can't buy like anything this year, I swear. If you want to, you can't buy any. You can't buy a PS5. You can't buy a Series X. You can't buy a 3070 or a 3080 or a 3090. You can't buy a 6800, a 6800 XT, a 6900 XT. You can't buy a 5600X, a 5900X, a 5800X, a 5950X. You can't buy anything. You cannot buy any of the new hardware at all unless you want to pay a scalper. And of course, do not buy from a scalper. So it's like here's the thing. All the Intel CPUs are in stock. Even the Zen 2 chips are mostly in stock, but Zen 3 is like impossible to find. Which is really frustrating for me because I just recently sold my 7700K and my old motherboard, and I want to upgrade to Zen 3. I have my new motherboard, it's an X570, so I'm set there, but I can't buy a 5900X, and it's really frustrating. So I'm basically and I have the money. I'm literally just sitting here waiting for it to be available. But yeah, I forgot about the PC stuff, so I brought that up real quick. But yeah, but obviously November, big month. Oh yeah, so the 3000 series cards, those came out in September, technically. Although the 3060 Ti, which you also can't buy, that came out in December. And then Zen 3 came out in Zen 3, and most of the Navi cards came out in November, although the 6900 XT came out in December. And now this brings us to, well, this month, which is December. So yeah, obviously I already said, yeah, the 3060 Ti and the 6900 XT, those came out this month. But the big thing I really want to talk about for this month is the one part that is kind of the most recent and the one that's most fresh in people's minds. Unfortunately, it is not a positive thing. This began at the end of November, but it really started to become a thing in December. So I'm going to just talk about it here for the December section. So, Nintendo this year has been really rocky, right? They haven't had many big releases. They've been doing really weird timing for their announcements. They've been having things be more spread out than they normally are. And while there have been some highlights like Steve and Animal Crossing, overall the year has been very rocky. Very rocky. And then, on, I believe, November 22nd, on November 22nd, the Big House, which is a Smash tournament. I haven't talked about Smash tournaments up until now, and that's because I kind of been wanting to save it for this part. But obviously the Smash tournaments, once COVID happened, they all shut down. And also there was the Smash World Tour, which was announced, and it was amazing. And then it never happened because it was announced at the worst possible time, etc., etc., etc. But this right here, this did not go over well. So yeah. So the Big House was holding an online tournament. I also skipped all of that too. I also forgot to bring up the whole, like, you know, the save, the fix ultimate online thing. Again, I didn't really bring that up because I kind of forgot about it, like I did a lot of things. But yeah, that also happened like around July or whatever, because Evo was canceled and everything. But because of course it was. But so yeah, the Big House Online was a Smash tournament, and they had both Melee and Ultimate, and they are using Slippy, which came out a couple months prior, and it's basically rollback netcode for Melee that allows basically online play to act as offline. It was really awesome. So the Big House, which is, you know, that's like a notable tournament series. People probably know what that is if you follow Smash tournaments, right? You know, the Big House, they've been around for a while. They're not like one of the big ones, but you know, they're definitely, you know, up there. So they were hosting online tournaments for both Melee and Ultimate. So, you know, pretty standard, right? Well, they were using Slippy for Melee, and because of that, Nintendo decided to step in and shut down the tournament. Not just the Melee part either. The entire tournament was shut down. Needless to say, that did not end well. The backlash was immediate, and for the most part, I can agree that it was totally justified. Because, well, yes, Nintendo has a history of taking down mods. We all know they don't like mods. You still shouldn't, you know. It's like, just no, because it felt like it, like, again, if they took this down during any other year, I don't think the backlash would have been as bad. But because of COVID and the fact that there wasn't any in-person tournaments, the backlash Nintendo got for it was insane. Like, almost everyone was jumping on them, and again, I honestly can't really blame anyone. That was a pretty, like, regardless of what their legal reasoning is for it, the fact of the matter is it was a dick move. That's what it was. Everyone agrees that it was. And they shouldn't have done it. But oh wait, there's more. Because not only did we get that, but shortly afterwards, Nintendo's officially sponsored, like, Splatoon, like, competitive thing, a stream they were going to do for it on the Nintendo official YouTube channel was shut down because people had their tags set to #FreeMelee. And again, there was like a official reason for it that literally no one bought. It was pretty obvious to everyone that they shut it down just because of the support for free Melee. So that just increased it even more. So, like, people hated them at that time. Like early, like late November, early December was when people were at its peak. Like, people still are not happy, but they have cooled off a bit thanks to things that have happened since then. But yeah, people were pissed at Nintendo, and I feel like almost this is the culmination of the entire year. Like, people were already annoyed at, like, not having many releases, the timing, not having a full direct, you know, the 3D All-Stars limited release thing. Fire Emblem, also the first Fire Emblem was getting an official localization, but it was going to be a time-limited release. Like, a lot of things just built up, and it felt like them taking down the tournament was like the last straw for people. It was like this was like the last straw for a lot of people, and it was like, I'm just done. They're the worst company ever. It was like a complete and total nightmare. But unlike Byleth, this time I think it's safe to say it was at least somewhat justified. Like, they shouldn't be taking down stuff, because there's literally no point in them taking down anything. Because literally the only thing that happens when they take down something is backlash and bad PR. That's literally all they get. There is no positive whatsoever for Nintendo to take down a tournament or take down anything. All it does is get people to complain. That's literally all it does. There is no point to it whatsoever. But they did it anyway, because reasons. But again, oh wait, there's still more. Then, I don't know if this was the thing that... Then, Nintendo started to take down more music from YouTube. Now, I think, honestly, of everything, this is their least offensive thing by far, because Nintendo legit cannot fight music on YouTube. Because, like, last year, like, you know, Brawl STX, whatever the heck his name was called, you know, the guy that had all the extended tracks for, like, years and years and years, he got shut down by Nintendo. But that was different, because people just immediately upload the music again. Like, Nintendo cannot fight music on YouTube no matter how hard they try, because people will always re-upload it. Always. And what do you know? If you want to find music for literally any Nintendo game, you can find it extremely easily on YouTube. It's still there. It doesn't matter how much Nintendo takes it down. So, in my opinion, that was definitely their least egregious thing. Plus, it's not a new thing. Again, they've taken down music several times in the past. But that was not even really the main thing. That was kind of a side thing that happened around the same time. But again... Oh wait, there's more. Then probably the worst, in my opinion, this is probably the worst one, because it's just morally wrong on every level. So first, they took down a tournament for using a mod, which again, I kind of get it, but they still shouldn't have done it. It was nothing but backlash. There was no point in them doing it. Then they shut down the Splatoon stream because of their support for the Smash scene, because of what happened with the tournament. Then they took down music, which again, by itself isn't that big of a deal, because they do that all the time, and also it's extremely easy to re-upload it. But then, right after that, then the Edicons, which were a custom set of Etika-themed Joy-Cons, because of course, you know, Joy-Con boys, all that stuff. I have a Joy-Con boys shirt, sitting right up there, actually. I've only worn it like once, because I was going to wear it to tournaments whenever we went to those, but of course that hasn't happened, because pandemic. When tournaments are available again, I start going with my brother to them again, I'll definitely be wearing that shirt. But yeah, so the Edicons, you know, a special set of custom. They're like on Patreon, not Patreon, but they were like on, but basically like it was being funded through like Kickstarter or whatever. I forget what it was being funded through. And the cool part is not only was it, you know, a custom set of Joy-Cons to, you know, celebrate the legend himself and everything, as you know, Joy-Con boys and everything, but all of the proceeds were going to go, or at least a portion of the proceeds, I forget if it was all or a portion, I think it was all actually, but the proceeds from the Edicons were going to go towards mental health awareness. That's really nice, right? That's really cool. It's you know, a great product for a great person, and it's going towards a great cause. What could possibly go wrong? Take a wild guess what happens next. Then, because of course they do, and because Nintendo was on a hot streak of shutting down things, they shut down the Edicons because it was an unauthorized whatever. And to be fair, it was unauthorized. But the problem was, well, first, this is, of course, coming hot off the heels of the tournament fiasco and everything. But, like, it came off as, like, 10 times worse than, like, if they just shut down some random custom Joy-Con, no one would have gave a darn. No one would have cared. But because it was Etika, and because it was going towards, you know, a charity or, you know, or towards mental health awareness, it made it look 10 times worse. It made them look so freaking bad, like shutting that down. Now, eventually they retracted a little bit, and they were just like, okay, you can make them, but you just have to take like the Joy-Con logo off of it or whatever. But still, like that, like if people didn't already hate them, they hated them like 5 times more for that. Like, yeah, Nintendo, like everyone freaking hate. If I didn't make that clear already, everyone hated Nintendo. I mean, hated them. Well, the corporate side. This is where we gotta bring up the divide. The divide that I know people have brought up, and I'm gonna bring it up here. Where the developers that make the games we all love and enjoy are not the same people that shut down the games and shut down the edicons and take down music. They aren't. They never have been. And I feel like that's a distinction that people have to make, because I've seen people go really hyperbolic and they're like, if you buy Nintendo games, then you're a bad person. And it's like, come on. Like, the games are good. That's why everyone loves Nintendo, or at least normally would be the games, right? That's what we love about Nintendo. You know, the games and the people that make them. The corporate bigwigs making all these legal decisions and stuff are not the ones making the games. You gotta remember that. So, and let's be real here, most of the problems Nintendo even has are from the corporate side. Like, you know, the Switch Online, you know, taking down fan games, the limited time release. All that stuff is from the corporate side, not the developers. So I don't think it's fair to completely bash Nintendo as a whole, because the entirety of the company is not responsible for this nonsense. That's only the corporate side, the legal side. They're responsible for all this nonsense. You want to jump on them, by all means, go for it. But don't lump the developers in with them, because that's not fair to the developers and the games they make. But, yeah, I just felt like saying that, because I think some people have kind of forgotten that when they're like, down with Nintendo, because it's like, you do realize that the people that make the games are not the people making these backwards-ass decisions, right? But I know people have pointed that out, but like, I'm not like Introspective put out a tweet that's like, you know, even if we all hate these bonehead decisions, you know, don't let that stop you from playing the games, because, you know, the people that make the games are not involved in any of this nonsense. So, yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up. So, Nintendo, probably for the first time ever since like 2016, when they were shutting down Pokemon Uranium and that other Metroid game and stuff. For the first time in a long time, they shut down multiple things consecutively, and everyone hated them. But there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The Game Awards was coming up, and while they didn't show anything the previous year, they had a chance at least somewhat of a redemption in the eyes of the public. Even though whatever they showed obviously would be from the developers. So again, the whole thing of separating the developers from the corporate side, but since everyone is kind of viewing Nintendo as just one company as a whole, you know, in the eyes of the public, it's like they had to redeem themselves with the Game Awards. And I think it's safe to say that at least they did. Well, at least in the eyes of, there was something positive to talk about with Nintendo, right? Because the Game Awards happened, and say what you will about the Game Awards themselves and everything, but, you know, we got a character. We were hoping for a character. I was kind of like, we'll see. Hopefully they have a character. We got a character. And we didn't just get any character. We got a freaking character, you know? We got a character and a half. We didn't get Crash. We didn't get Sora. We didn't get Doom Guy. We didn't get Jonesy. We didn't get any of those guys. We got someone that no one was expecting. No one thought had a chance of getting in. Well, maybe not had a chance, but no one thought it was going to happen. But you know what? People didn't care. People were hyped for it regardless, because come on, it's that character. And who is that character? You know him well. If you didn't know him before, you know him now. I'm of course talking about Sephiroth. Sephiroth came out of nowhere and people loved him. I mean, come on, it's freaking Sephiroth. Also, that trailer was hype as heck. Like, we haven't had a full CG trailer since Banjo, so it was awesome to see that. Also, they kind of did the thing they did with the Banjo trailer, where they kind of reused a previous trailer. I mean, the World of Light intro was not a trailer necessarily, but obviously they reused that, basically, for this. But of course, instead of, you know, Gilliam killing everyone and Kirby escaping with, you know, the star, the warp star, instead he gets sliced in half, and then the second the second that starts, you know, Hungry Box Sephiroth. Yeah, that was glorious. It was glorious. I wasn't as hyped for Sephiroth as I was for Steve, because Steve was a personal was more personal. But obviously Sephiroth was a fantastic character to choose. And I feel like people are wondering, oh, is Steve just gonna be a fluke? But nah, Sephiroth is here, so it's like, I think we are finally back on the string of third-party characters, so that's good. We'll see what happens. For all I know, and in February they'll reveal like Cinderace as the next character or something. But but yeah, so we got Sephiroth. People were super stoked for it. Although some people were quick to be like, hey, Sephiroth is cool and all, but this is Sakurai, not Nintendo. Or, as I've been saying, this is the developers, not Nintendo. I know that Sakurai doesn't technically work for Nintendo, which is kind of odd because we all consider him basically a Nintendo employee, even though he's not really a Nintendo employee. But yeah, so basically everyone was like, think Sakurai, not Nintendo, was basically the general consensus. But regardless, it didn't matter because Sephiroth was awesome. And, the stage looked really cool. And finally, the 2-track curse was broken. Like, honestly, I was more hyped for that as well as the return of a feature I've been wanting back for months that I already made a video on. But like, finally, the 2-track curse of Final Fantasy was broken. We got 11 tracks grand total on 2 stages. So, yeah, it's pretty awesome. So, yeah, Sephiroth, pretty awesome. So, yeah. And, honestly, if it wasn't for all of the corporate nonsense Nintendo was doing, that would have been a really strong way to end 2020 for them. Because that's basically how they ended 2020, was with Sephiroth. And then they had the Sephiroth challenge where you could play him early and everything. So, yeah, Sephiroth, awesome. His stage, awesome. Music, awesome. Slam dunk with Sephiroth. Too bad the corporate side of the company is dragging it down. That's the thing. I feel bad for, like, the developers because their hard work is basically being dragged down by the asinine actions of the corporate side. It's like, yeah, we have Sephiroth, but don't forget they shut down a tournament. They shut down Edicons. It's like, why has corporate Nintendo gotta be like that? Like, why they gotta be like that? There's no purpose to them shutting down all that stuff. It just makes people mad at them. But yeah, so they at least ended on a good note with Sephiroth, but the damage from them shutting down stuff certainly is not going anywhere anytime soon. And with that being said, that is 2020. Holy crap, this video went on for a long time, didn't it? 1 hour and 31 minutes. Dang. I mean, I know I was kind of talking about, oh, this video is going to be like an hour long, but like, even I didn't really think it was going to be that long. Well, then again, I kind of wanted to go through everything, so yeah. 2020, it's been a year, isn't it? A lot of things have happened. Unfortunately, not for the better, but on the bright side, 2021 is definitely going to be a better year because we're going to get the vaccine in 2021, at least sometime during it. And as far as Nintendo is concerned, despite some of the asinine actions of the corporate side, from a developer standpoint, their 2021 is probably going to be following the pattern. Because you know how I talked about earlier about how 2017 was great, 2018 was 2019 was good, and then 2020 was mostly not good except for the very end. Well, now that means 2021 has to be a good year, right? It would only make sense. Plus, Breath of the Wild 2 definitely is 2021 now. And, Bayonetta 3 might finally come out, and of course we'll still get more Smash DLC and stuff. So it's like 2021 definitely looks to be the redemption arc that Nintendo desperately needs right now. So, yeah. And of course, we'll finally get stock of all the new PC parts and the consoles, hopefully. Right now, my plan is just to get the new processor. But after that, and after I get a job, hopefully, I'm working on getting a job here, but, we'll see how that goes. Then I'm going to, get myself, PS5, Series X, all that stuff. Maybe I might even get a new graphics card, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so that's 2020. So if you have made it this far into the video, thank you so much for still listening, because I think most people would have tuned out like a long time ago. But if you're still here, you've made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, what do you guys think of this year? Like, what were your pros? What were your cons? Just kind of your thoughts on this year as a whole. I'm sure people have their stories, and yeah, so this is it. This is the end of 2020 for me. This is the end of the Nin-Cast for Season 4. I will see you guys for Season 5 next year. I'll probably begin work on the next Nin-Cast probably early on in the month, but we'll see how that goes. Because there are a couple of Nin-Casts I'd be interested in making, but we'll see how that goes. And yeah, hopefully I get my new processor and I can actually use my proper computer instead of having to use the laptop to record and edit this thing. But oh well. So, with that being said, this is Logan59XP, and I will see you guys next year.